You know, I always said I was a lazy individual, and I know for a fact that I am, so today we're going to do another Sailor Moon video, yay! Now the thing about Sailor Moon scaling is that everyone only really knows the highest end without ever really knowing exactly why the people on the high end are so high. One of the most egregious examples would be Usagi herself. Sure, everyone knows that she can beat Goku, but when you ask them why, none of them have an answer aside from she just becomes God. And while this is somewhat accurate, no one really explains that was through Lambda or how Lambda works, or how the many different statements mention the Silver Crystal having infinite power. So my thought process was going to be simple, to give an in-depth introspective on exactly why Sailor Moon was so strong. But I already did that. So I will be doing the next best thing, going over her most powerful enemy and oh yeah, I already did that too, didn't I? Well, seeing as how we only missed one person who was influential in scaling Usagi, I decided to put this one out in sort of reverse order, more importantly because this character is kind of interesting, to me at least. As such, this video will be going over Queen Nehelenia, not only because of the fact that mirror scaling is cool, but Nehelenia is one of the handful of people who are actually influential in scaling Usagi. If I was smart, I would have dropped this when the Galaxia video dropped instead of the Galaxia video, but that requires something called foresight. Anyways, with that being said, let's dive into the mirror world. While Sailor Moon and Galaxia scaling is interesting, Nehelenia scaling is much more interesting to talk about, not only because of the fact that she had one of the coolest powers in the verse, but also just has some of the most grounded scaling out of all the characters in the series. Probably because she only has like 2 fights, and you can't really mess up scaling on 2 different fights. While she does only have a limited number of fights, she makes up for it in several different ways, such as blocking attacks from the inner senshi with her mirrors, as well as maintaining several different mirror universes simply by existing. This is not only confirmed by Chibi Usa, who states that every mirror contains a dark parallel universe on the other side, but also with Nehelenia praising Sailor Moon for entering her mirror, who did so unconsciously just by chasing after her. With this Sailor Moon receiving an amp so powerful that she was able to use her Super Sailor Moon transformation casually when she previously required 8 different senshi power to unlock the Holy Grail. On top of that, she will follow this up by taking Sailor Saturn and Chibi Moon in her form as Zirconia and placing them into these parallel mirror universes through broken glass shards, sealing them with their only assistance being with Sailor Moon. With Sailor Saturn being someone who the 3 outer senshi, protectors from threats that threatened the entire solar system, were fearful of awakening their talismans in case of the world's destruction after one-shotting them all on her first awakening, who also destroyed Pharaoh 90 and the entire Tau Nebula on his back with a swing of her glaive. This is alongside Chibi Moon, who has a limited access to the Silver Crystal, which is considered to be an orb of infinite power that activates based on willpower, which she uses to transform into her princess status with Sailor Moon on several fights. While it is debatable on whether these two are considered the strongest senshi at this point in time, especially Chibi Moon, Saturn is someone who, as powerful as she was, also received a super level increase in power and was still somewhat implied to be the strongest out of all of the outer senshi, with all of the outer senshi stating that Saturn growing up was because of the fact that there was a new threat that they needed to face, and this Nehelenia kind of just packed them up. On top of that, more pushing towards that universal scaling for Galaxia was her impact on the magical plane of Elysium, which was sent into a downward spiral of ruin upon her mere existence, requiring Helios, the guardian of Elysium, to require Sailor Moon's help and giving her the Moon Kaleidoscope to fight against regular Lumières. And even with this amp that allowed her to enter the mirror universes and break the shards, something the 9 other senshi couldn't do, Nehelenia was so strong that her mirror was able to reflect Sailor Moon's strongest attack at this point in time right back at them without any issue. Another pretty underrated interaction Nehelenia had was actually with Queen Serenity, which, while not necessarily having massive power scaling implications on the surface, puts a bit more into perspective. As a Nehelenia from years prior at the princess's birthday threatened to overthrow the Moon Kingdom from the dark side of the moon, which, while this doesn't sound like much, obvious villain motive and backstory, this is something that has a ton of implications as Nehelenia knew of the Silver Crystal and its power at this point in time, alongside noting that Queen Serenity and the other senshi were all outsiders, quote unquote, while Queen Serenity, unlike during the fall of the Moon Kingdom, had complete control over the Silver Crystal, implying that Nehelenia either had a plan to deal with the Silver Crystal, like the Black Moon Clan and their malefic Black Crystal's power null, or she was just strong enough to fight against a prime Queen Serenity without any tricks. Even if you don't believe that much in the power of Queen Serenity would moments later lock Nehelenia in a mirror in fear of her plans to overthrow the Moon Kingdom, locking her in a place where she would not be able to escape, at least until she did. Sailor Moon would later fight against a stronger Nehelenia, requiring her to gather not only the power of the Senshi from their castles, but also the power of the Golden Crystal, which is a power that is relative to the Silver Crystal, to even beat Nehelenia, which just goes to show how strong and how much of a threat Nehelenia really was. For someone whose entire appearance in the arc was just sitting in a chair, you'd think that speed feats are non-existent for Nehelenia. And you'd be almost correct. However, within the limited number of chapters she has, she does show herself to be comparable to the Senshi in speed, at least the Super Senshi. In her Zirconia form, she's able to catch sailors Saturn and Chibi Moon off guard and trap them into glass shards, with this Saturn being someone who, in base within the following arc, was able to travel to Charon Castle without transforming when Galaxia attacked Pluto. Not only that, but this is a Saturn who was aware of Zirconia and warning the quartet of her before putting her into the shard, while also in the middle of a fight with them. This is also consistent with the outer Senshi, who are all also able to fly to their respective castles with ease during that same Stars arc, which they also confirmed to have done previously before they even received their eternal buffs. However, the biggest direct feat here is actually Nehelenia blocking Sailor Moon's Moon Gorgeous Meditation from point blank range by creating a mirror to reflect the attack back at her. While this originally wouldn't seem like much, this is a Sailor Moon who had more power than the Sailor Moon from Nemesis, who lit up the entire universe with her silver crystal, while also being able to, within that allotted time frame of like nothing, is able to create a mirror strong enough to reflect the attack, which is stated to be light on various occasions. However, speed feats for Sailor Moon characters are always really slim, so this will always be a touchy subject when giving a character a certain level of speed, since a lot of it stems from the whole Sailor Moon lit up the universe in space-time corridor feat, which would put them in an immeasurable speed tier that, if you could imply from the name, is immeasurable. Even if you do say it was just the universe and Pluto just left the door cracked open, this weaker Sailor Moon would get an amp of another 7 Senshi's worth of power and speed. And on top of that, she gets another amp from Helios to allow her to transform into Super without the need of the other Senshi with the Holy Grail. So her speed would definitely be massively faster than light relating to her attack speed, and Nehelenia was able to react to and block it. It's really weird because of this feat here, and with the way the feat was set up alongside all the other supporting evidence, we can't really disregard it or call it an outlier. And even if we did, the only other speed feat we have for Sailor Moon and trying to bounce it off of Nehelenia is her traveling to Sagittarius Alpha. With this feat being something where if you do want to give a number to it, depending on the time frame, could be anywhere from 13 billion to upwards of 800 billion times faster than light. And even if you still want to keep using that feat, that is fine. It is just that that feat is around 700 quadrillion times faster than light, which still puts her in the massively faster than light category of speed. Nehelenia's hacks are another thing that's interesting to go over, mainly because she's basically known for one of them being her mirror dimensions. With her mirror, she's able to pull herself as well as others into separate mirror dimensions that are parallel to the regular verse, with these mirrors only being able to be destroyed and passed through by people of relative power to Nehelenia, which is shown when sailors Saturn and Chibi Moon are unable to escape their mirror prisons, while Super Sailor Moon is able to walk in casually, all while the other Senshi are trying to destroy the mirror with their attacks. These mirrors also have the ability to reflect attacks, such as Super's Moon Gorgeous Meditation, reflecting her attack back at her and forcing her to get hit by it, while also being able to spawn from pretty much anywhere. This also goes without saying since we just went over the mirror thing, but she also has the ability to travel between different dimensions, such as being able to enter Juban with the rest of the Dead Moon Circuits from the Solar Eclipse, as well as being able to teleport between Earth and Elysium after the Senshi do so. Alongside these mirrors, she also has various other abilities up her sleeve, like transforming into a giant avatar that required an attack from all the Senshi aside from Saturn and Chibi Moon to beat in Zirconia, a manifested version of herself on the other side of the mirror, and even being able to trap other people in horrific nightmares that even the outer Senshi struggle to wake up from. In addition to these other abilities, Nehelenia also has the ability to place curses onto individuals or perform some sort of fate manipulation. This one's a bit up in the air, but it ultimately depends on who you believe between the outer Senshi and Nehelenia, as Nehelenia places a curse on Princess Serenity when she's put into the mirror that causes the fall of Silver Millennium. Now, the reason I say that this is up in the air is because this is something that the outer Senshi go over, stating that Silver Millennium was destined to fall. Though we don't really get more explanation about this aside from the characters going, "I did this." Nuh-uh. She does have the ability to place curses on Helios and trap him in Elysium or drain his power, while also inflicting Mamoru with an illness that causes him to cough up blood. However, the thing about this is that Sailor Moon does say that she knows that Mamoru can feel the presence of the planet and its strain, implying that it could just be because of the fact that Elysium is in trouble, which is why he's getting sick in the first place. Assuming we do take this as part of Nehelenia's moveset, this does give her either the ability to bring disaster on a person, which could mean something like putting them in absolute life life-threatening peril immediately, or something that can happen over time, seeing as how she wasn't able to cause the fall of Silver Millennium immediately, or she has some sort of fate manipulation that skews the odds out of favor of her opponent, as none of the events that occur in the fall of Silver Millennium were actively influenced by her, such as Queen Beryl and the Earth Rebellion killing the Princess in Endymion, or the activation of the talismans and the revival of Sailor Saturn. Like I said, it's ultimately up in the air on how this works, if she even does have an ability like fate manipulation or anything among the sort, but someone would mention it, and if I don't bring it up, I'd be assaulted. Though having the ability to inflict curses is still correct and something she has the ability to do, we don't get an exact way of how the curses work aside from just it do a hurdy-wordy. Aside from those clear hacks, her mirrors can fly, contain real-world property of mirrors like reflecting light. She's able to gift magic to other beings and give them humanoid forms who also share some level of power with her, such as the Amazon's quartet and the eyes that the quartet summon, while also being able to create other beings like the flying eye on her staff, which can view characters from long distances, or the Lumieres that also place people in nightmares that drain their power. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you sitting through the scaling of probably my favorite character in the Sailor Moon verse, that is Mako. I was gonna go and do the other series first, but this kind of just popped into my head as a topic to make a video on and I couldn't get it out of my head. That and there are only but so many topics you can talk about with Sailor Moon as a series once you do go over the big three characters, and since Sailor Cosmos has near no scaling to speak of aside from she has Lambda, the Sailor Moon video acts the best as a Sailor Cosmos scaling video. Like, you legitimately cannot scale her. It is impossible to power scale a character with maybe 10 pages to the name who only had a flashback fight in a single panel. Otherwise, it would just be me making the Sailor Moon power scaling video too. It's not like Chloe Reed where we can just jump to another series and go from there. Rants aside, now that I've completed the Nehelenia video, I can finally sit down and go over a different Mahou Shoujo series. But I do want to thank everyone who has been watching and going through this journey with me. While I was in the middle of making this, we reached 500 subscribers, and while that may not seem like a lot to some people, reaching this number here was insane to me. I just have no words for you guys. You guys are crazy. That being said, if you do want to see more Mahou Shoujo scaling content in the future, trust me, I have several more ideas down the line, so be prepared. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Or if you absolutely hated the video, leave a massive dislike and comment why you think I'm an idiot for not saying that I can make an 8+ minute video scaling Sailor Cosmos with only a handful of statements. And ciao.
今ここで限界を超えろ。それしか道はねえ。俺たち金色の夜明け団だ。クローバー王国最強の魔法騎士団だ。Whoop, whoop.